Welcome to the new year. It's January 6th, 2025. And I did a little informal count. This may be our fourth year of doing these things, which is kind of crazy. Um, we've got a couple, interesting things on deck. We have Dave Franson, who wrote this program a million years ago or 40 years ago, whichever was closest.
I think it was a million.
And I have one of the guys on the groups.io list wrote a program that does a animation demo. It's got these four frames. It cycles through the frames, and he chose this classic Amiga animation for his first test of it and sent it across. Folks would only run it in emulators, but I've got it running on live hardware to my left. About a couple hours ago, he sent across two more variations. One was called Snake, which kind of looks like, looking at it, kind of looks like snake skin, and the other one is called Grid, which is really trippy. So if you have taken LSD this evening, just be forewarned. Anyway, and Joe Vandezande is going to give us a little update on some hardware that he's built to expand the memory on an 81 or 1000 internally. And it also supports this crazy thing called Sponzi, which is the Spectrum ROM on the ZX81.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's craziness. Anyway, with that, Dave, let's start with you. Since you're new, what we usually do is, ask people, what's your origin story? What you got you into, the Sinclair community, I think is the best way to express it. What you did with your computers, what you did afterwards, if that is interesting. I mean, if you didn't do anything more interesting than playing with a Timex Sinclair computer, it's hard to top that, right?
I think it's hard. It's very hard.
People do go on and do other things.
It's been a long decline since then. Let's face it.
Really right, exactly. That's like the peak for a lot of us.
I know. So I was a lowly college student in like 1982, and I had taken a course in statistics. It was the first time I ever touched a computer in my life, despite having 4 years of high school math. And this is still punch card days. And you literally had to take your deck of punch cards to the computing center and have them run them for you, get your results the next day, and hope to God you did something that made sense. Then it was only like a couple months later that we got access to interactive terminals. But cutting through that real quickly, lo and behold, a local supermarket chain called Pick and Save in southeastern Wisconsin, where I lived, had a promo one week. I was ordering through all my computers saying, hey, you can get this Timex Sinclair computer TS 1000. You get a 16K RAM pack. You get 3 cassette tapes, $29.99. And I was down, man. So I went and got that, and the rest is history. So that was my first computer at home, and had a great time with it. Got all the several of the import magazines and types of stuff in. Played a lot of Flight Simulator, all 8 pixels of it. And when the 2068 came out, I was aware of it, and it was a matter of putting the money together, and I got one fairly early on. And I really enjoyed that. My brother, I should say, is an electrical engineer, a couple years younger than me. And he was a very good source for answering all my stupid questions about things like what's the difference between a serial port and a parallel port, which I had no idea because I was a liberal arts major. I had no idea. And so I got 2068. Then I got hooked up with the user group in Milwaukee was called SMUG, Sinclair Milwaukee Users Group. Very active, and a lot of good people, a lot of sharing. People had some interesting hardware going already. There's a system you're all probably familiar with that did an interrupt dump of the entire contents of RAM to disk drives, for instance, on a ZX or a TS 1000. So that's cool stuff. And then right after I got my 2068, it became clear that Timex basically exited the market in the U.S. And knowing that the machine had a lot of potential had never been realized, I did my best to gather what I could, and I got my hands on the technical manual. And to make a lot of long stories very short, I was very into computer graphics at the time. I had been in the print industry before I went to college, and I was very interested in this thing called extended color mode, which involved like remapping the graphics to allow this. So it gave you a lot higher, well, a lot higher for those days. I mean, 8 times essentially the color resolution. So I did some machine code, did some basic, and created a program I named Extended Paint, which allowed users to, load in their images and paint over them in extended color mode to get a little bit higher resolution. It was more or less a tech demo more than anything else. And then I met some other people. My brother, as I said, was an electrical engineer in Minnesota. He had a friend named Kurt Casby who wrote the first X modem program that allowed us to, remember Kurt?
Well,
yeah, well, okay. But anyway, his X modem program allowed us to like download things from CompuServe, et cetera, and do a lot of sharing. So that was very cool. And unfortunately, I had gotten my hands on a Timex support school disk drive system, which is awesome. But by that time, my interest had started to wane a little bit, and I got into Amiga. So like 87 or 88, I kind of dropped out the TS world. So I informed David today that counter to what I had wrote him originally when he wrote me a week ago, I actually discovered a cassette of my program, which he is going to hopefully digitize and make available to you all, and you can all marvel at my programming inefficiencies. But that's what it is, and I'm just very, very excited to learn there's still such an active group following this system, because it really has a special place in my heart, and I really mean it, because I learned my chops, whatever they are, chops on this systems and these systems, and I always thought it was cool. I mean, I never had a QL, for instance, but I certainly know what they are. I don't know what happened to it. I assume it went nowhere. I actually have one thing I didn't show David yet, and you probably have already seen this. I actually have a Sinclair calculator.
Oh, nice.
I have no idea how I had this. Whoops, sorry, I can't. I'm not very good at Zoom. I have no idea how or why I had this, where I got it from, but I do have it. Let me turn it on for you. And, you remember the glory days of when we had LED. LEDs meant something totally different, which are basically calculator displays. So it still works. Little 9-volt battery in here, but it's labeled Sinclair Cambridge Programmable. So that's that. I just found that when I found the same time I found the cassette tape, David. So it was kind of... Totally forgot I had this. Had no idea. So no idea where it came from. It could have been. Yeah, it's great. So anyway, that's my story. After I got out of Sinclair land, I went to Amigas for a while. Got co-opted by PCs. I worked in consulting, did a lot of web development, and I, as I like to say, I molded down my career a little bit, focused more on family and whatnot. I did tech support for like the last 15 years of my career, ended up at a law office, and I've been retired for like 5 years now. So that's my story. But I'm still very interested in very cool adventures like this. I think people who have a passion for stuff are the most interesting people, and this is certainly one of those things. So.
That's very polite of you to say that about us.
Well, I don't know you yet, so my opinion may change.
The other thing that the SMUG user group, this Sinclair Milwaukee User Group, is known for is this digitizer. And you might have been gone by the time that they designed this, Dave.
Tell me about it.
There's a little doodad and a little circuit board that plugged onto the back of your 2068. You'd hook a video camera or VCR into one end, and it would digitize, in black and white, a still from the video.
My brother wrote one of those my brother was into Ataris. Okay. He wrote one of those for the Atari ST in conjunction with Kurt Casby, and they marketed that for a while. It was basically it was a scanner you put on a print head. It would read it into the computer and then give you a digitized image of a photograph or whatever you put on the printer plate. So yeah, I know. I think it's the same thing we're talking about, aren't we? kind of?
No, this one
Okay.
this one used a you can plug video camera into it.
Okay. Very cool.
And what I'm looking for, there was a bunch of articles about it. And some of them actually have examples of the output. Unfortunately, I'm not finding it quickly here. Shoot. If it's this one. No. Okay, I'll look for it. But yeah, it was just really low resolution. Yeah, Adam has a question. Adam, go ahead and jump in. Are you unable to unmute yourself? Are we having this? There's a weird Zoom problem where some folks are.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I muted myself, and I never hardly do that, but I was trying to be polite. So
Okay.
well, my name is Adam, and I just had a question about the resolution. You said it's 8 times as high, and I checked David's site, and I guess it's a quote from a magazine or your manual or something. What do you mean your resolution of your extended paint program is 8 times normal resolution?
There's a built-in graphics mode on the 2068 that allowed you to do it divided each block of color into 8 separate segments. You know what I'm saying? So they're 1 pixel tall and 8 pixels wide. So
Okay.
I mean, they didn't make any sense in terms of you're actually trying to be a designer, but if just in terms of raw resolution, you got 8 times the resolution that you'd normally get. Does that make sense?
On a horizontal line, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I say it's 8 times as high. I mean, that was just a shorthand for saying what it did. It was really funny though, because when I first showed this to the user group, people thought it was magic. They said, "What did you do to the computer?" And I said, "It's just software, man. I got my hands on a technical manual, and you can really do a lot of fun things then." So, but I don't know, tragic is an overstatement, but that machine was cut short in terms of what it could do. I mean, just the fact that it had things like cartridge slot was pretty amazing in terms of how they incorporated the spectrum technology into it without really screwing it up. So, yeah. So that's all I was trying to talk about. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the other big mode was they had I think David and I were talking before the chat started, but he had mentioned there was a 64 column text mode. That was the other built-in graphics enhancement in the 2068 that was never really used, as far as I know. I know somebody did a word processor for it when I was still active in the community, but I don't know what happened to it after that. So.
The problem with that, well, it's not a problem per se, but you can't really see the resolution well enough on a regular TV.
Exactly.
That was be able to make problem. It out. Yeah.
I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think I had mine going out the composite monitor, so it's a little bit better, but it's still just on
it's difficult to read.
On the edge of plausibility. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely, Adam. So
yeah. I'll show you a little example here. Where's my shares? There we go. Yeah, this is at one of the user group meetings. Somebody brought this SMUG. Literally, that's what it's called, SMUG digitizer, right?
Yep.
Hooked it up, took headshots of people who attended the meeting.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's this. Maybe, let me see if it's this one here. Oh, there we go. Yes. Right.
That is right. That's great. So it's like reminiscent of like the Nintendo camera.
Exactly. Right.
The Game Boy camera. It's just like it.
Great. And so here's the funny thing. All right. Mowgli, top left, still active, comes to meetings once in a while.
Nice.
This guy, right here, second from the left. Paul, are you here today? I think Paul's here today.
Yes, I'm here.
That's Paul. I mean, this is...
You haven't aged a bit, man. You look great.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a good photo of Paul.
I know, it's really good. I wish I could say the same.
Yeah, so it was a really, really simple circuit that...
Yeah.
Let's see, I don't have
I love that kind of stuff. I remember when I used to play with was it View 3D? It was like the first 3D modeling program I ever ran. It worked.
On the
I just thought that was like magic to me. I mean, the fact that you could like create these figures and have the computer essentially create the graphic for you based on your models was fantastic. And I went on and did a lot of stuff with ray tracing and whatnot in the Amigas. But it's just a fantastic concept. Of course, now it's like commonplace. But then it was like just hit me with a bolt of lightning. Why don't you? So yeah,
well,
very cool.
And it's funny you should mention that, because someone in the list whose name is escaping me did perfect example. I got some examples. Shared some examples that they had done a gazillion years ago, right? On the paper. You can see the paper.
Right.
You can sort of see the shininess there.
Right.
So, and this was done, in View 3D.
Yep. No, it's just nice. AT. Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, it was Francois. Okay, yeah, Francois up in Montreal.
No, it's just so cool. I mean, and the fact you can position your cameras, like I'd be fascinated. Like I modeled like a cup or a goblet. And then you put your camera inside the goblet, and you're looking up at the rim of the goblet, and it's like that was just like totally incredible to me. So,
yeah. Well, Francois apparently had a lot of free time on his hands then.
Some of us haven't moved on, and I still think that's totally incredible. So
I think it totally is. I just wanted a story, if you'll indulge me a second. I mean, so I was a liberal arts major. I'm not a programmer by trade in any way, shape, or form. I just happen to have a mind that works in various ways between different worlds. And I was really struggling to understand Z80 machine code. And if you ever look at one of my programs and disassemble them, you know how horribly they're written. I mean, in terms of efficiency, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to get it done. I just wanted to get into this extended color mode, see what it was all about. I managed to do that. But I'm just saying, when I was really struggling with assembly, and I could not figure out what the hell was going on. And all of a sudden, I was working late one night, and a bolt of lightning came down from the heavens and struck me in the head. And all of a sudden, I saw it all at once. It's incredible. It's like one of those when you're young, and your mind's so open. It's like, boom. It's just like heavens opened up. I understood it all at once. My code is still horrible, but at least I knew what I was doing horribly,
Well, Dave, I will tell you, also a liberal arts major.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't feel so alone then.
I started out in comp sci, but they were like, "You're gonna have to take COBOL." I said, "I am not going to be working in a bank basement."
You made a good decision.
And so, yeah, I got a BA in liberal studies, which is, I like to tell people, is majoring in undeclared.
You don't have any major liberal? Your major is liberal studies?
Yeah, undeclared.
That's okay. Well, that's pretty low on the totem pole.
I mean, I didn't take basket weaving, but I did take everything else.
Or something. My God.
I think he likes you, David.
Yeah. Well, Dave, that was awesome. Thank you. And I am looking forward to hopefully digitizing extended paint, because, like you said, it's one of those things that. One of those very rare programs that demonstrated, some of these obscure features of the 2068.
Does anybody else do you have a digitized copy of the technical manual?
Oh, yes.
No, I hope so. God,
there's multiples.
Right,
actually.
Hope to God, because that thing, I mean, it was like a wealth of knowledge. So,
yeah. Well, and the user groups, like your user group and all the other user groups were. Very similar. It was bizarre because, they were like islands, right? I mean, there would be some communication. The user groups would send each other newsletters, and they'd be different articles and stuff, but not, with the way that we can share stuff now. And, you had somebody who's a local expert in Oregon, and somebody in, a couple of people in Wisconsin, and a couple of people in, New York or whatever. Coming up with these great ideas and articles, and writing them in their newsletters and sending them around, and gradually little accretions of knowledge would build about how to do stuff. I have spent a fair chunk of my life over the past 7 or 8 years scanning those things in.
Well, that's amazing. I'm very impressed, honestly.
Partially it's selfish because I love reading the stuff. So as I was scanning, I'm like reading. It's like, oh, that's cool. Save that one for later.
Yep.
But then partially it's to make it available to everybody here. We have a mix. I'm just going to pick on some people real quick. I'm going to turn off the chat so I can see. We have a mix of old folks, old, whatever they call them, old hands, like us. Adam is not a first
No.
round, Timex person.
I got that. He looks very youthful.
He is very
Thank
youthful.
I think Peyton is too, right? He just only
Peyton,
got his
exactly.
very
Peyton,
recently.
is another, recent Timex person, like within the last year, less than a year, right, Peyton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just really started picking it back up. I'm sorry I had my camera off while I was eating here.
Oh, that's no problem. That's no problem. And then there's other folks, who have come back into the fold, never left, whatever. Who just come and hang out, and we shoot the shit. That leads me actually to Christian Mann. Hey, Christian, are you there?
There we go.
Cool.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Okay,
Christian?
just making sure I got the... Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Christian, you
Yeah.
are somewhere in the southern mid-Atlantic, based on your accent.
No, I actually live in Kentucky.
Right. That's the mid-Atlantic region of the United States.
Oh,
To the
didn't think
Kentucky.
it was even considered that.
Yeah. Okay. So, Christian, you got a 2068 recently, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And what led you to get a 2068? I mean, are you a vintage computer collector, or?
Well, yeah, I don't... Let me rephrase that. I'm a person who is fascinated with all things historical, basically.
Okay.
So I don't limit my interest in just computers. I also have interest in video games, let's see, game consoles, and model trains, and music. I have shellac and vinyl records to boot, and there's all sorts of things that I have an interest in. So goes to show how wide of a range we're talking about here.
I think that could be half of us here.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. All the things that you've mentioned, there's at least one other person in the group who's into those things.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah.
So I guess I'm not the oddball here then.
Well, either that or we're just all oddballs, except for Adam. Adam's the normal.
Yeah, that's right. The young normal one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'd be surprised as to how. You'd be surprised on how much there is that I've taken interest in. But a lot of it's related to old things.
Cool.
Well, how did you run into the 2068?
I think I might have stumbled across that by accident at one point while I was quote and unquote window shopping on eBay.
That's a bad thing, man.
I mean, window shopping on Windows, really?
And so, I mean, did you do any digging, or did you just like pull the trigger and said, "Yeah, I got to have this beautiful silver machine"?
Well, I think what got that started was that at one point I was just browsing around some old computers, like just to see if there's any that would catch my interest. Since hang on, I'm trying to get my words together here.
Yeah.
Sometimes my brain and my words don't cooperate.
All right, I am
So
totally
I have to catch them. So I have to catch myself here. Oops. Anyway, I was browsing around on eBay just to see if there were any computers that, well, 8-bit computers that might catch my interest. And funny enough, if you were to ask me what my first 8-bit computer thing is, that would really depend because the very first thing that I have bought that has anything to do at all with 8-bit computers is the Timex Sinclair 2020 data recorder. Of course, it's 2025 now. And the very first 8-bit computer, period, would be the Aquarius Plus Standard, which is, I don't know if you heard of that or not, but it's,
Unfortunately,
I
I
mean,
have.
from what I have,
I used to have one of those
well,
things.
from what I have it. It's just I don't have the keyboard and mouse to go with it. Otherwise, I would have been fiddling around with it just to get a feel on how it works.
Well, then I don't know what you're referring to then. An Aquarius Plus with a mouse?
No,
What
I
are you
think
referring
that I think the Aquarius Plus is that newer device that
Yeah,
that the
it's
Aquarius.
basically a new. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I
No,
didn't
no,
mean
go ahead.
to.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah, it's basically a most what I would say a modern version of the Mattel Aquarius.
Hmm.
That all it is, I would call it a tower, which is not really a tower. Yeah, it's just lacking a keyboard and mouse, and that's something that you have to supply yourself. I got the standard version so that I can fit all the bells and whistles that would have came with the original Aquarius for completeness sake.
I'm gonna put the
And
GitHub page up. Okay, while you talk, keep going. So, is that what
and
you're talking about?
as
Oh,
as
nice.
yep, that's it. That's the one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got I got the computer number 109,
Oh, nice.
Surely that's
judging
more than
by
the
the
original. Like,
well, that's
yeah.
well that and the Timex Sinclair 2068 that you have just seen a moment ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the only 8-bit computers that I have.
Hey, Christian, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you know when was the original Aquarius marketed? Do you know that? I was trying to put this in my
Uh,
timeline.
That's like 83.
Is it 83?
I
Yeah, about
Okay.
83.
So,
I
and
figured it was the early 80s.
who was manufacturing it?
Mattel.
Who made it?
The
Mattel
original Aquarius is
Electronics.
Mattel.
Radifin actually made it, and
I don't remember this at all.
yeah,
That's crazy.
it's actually just
Wow.
it's a computer from Radifin, like one of the weird ones, like from overseas, from Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. So it's like they just put their imprint on it.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, I got you. All right. I really didn't remember. I was thinking the earliest system I ever saw was like Mattel and Television, or whatever Television, which is like late 70s, right?
Yeah, it was
I don't
79.
remember anything like
I,
Aquarius. It just rings the name rings a bell. I just couldn't place it. So cool.
Well, they also, Mattel also
Yeah.
came out with a computer module for the Intellivision.
Really?
Right.
I had no idea. In the
And
late
it used,
70s?
no, I think that might have came out maybe 82-ish,
Okay.
because it looks like the Intellivision 2. It
Okay.
doesn't look like it'll plug into the one, but, it looks like the Intellivision 2 did, or just a smaller. But it had the keyboard. It actually had Microsoft Basic.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Just Microsoft Basic in there. Yeah. So it was a really limited machine, what you could do, but hey, it was a keyboard you could hook up to your television.
Well, I mean, but price wise, it had to be. It had to be on the very low end, correct?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's probably at that time would have been still, probably about $200, maybe $199.
we haven't talked about this, but I mean, I don't want to digress too much, but just, I mean, the whole vision of Clive Sinclair was to do the stuff cheap, so like everybody could do it, right? So like I'm running my 2068, and I paid $200 for it, whatever. My friend bought his $2,000 Apple II system and can't figure out why you can't do a Russian alphabet on it, because it just doesn't support bitmap graphics that way. But I mean, it's just like, I mean, it really was an effort to make a computer for every person, as opposed to like having a fortune in your pocket. So I would appreciate
that brings
it.
up a point I wanted to ask you so you said you got your 1000 with a 16K data pack and 3 tapes for $29.99 at Pick and
I did.
Save or something. So that must have been later right, like 84, 85.
That was 82.
Oh,
Really?
Yep. It was incredible. I think they're blowing them out already. I mean, I think Timex is already starting to sunset the product, and it was literally at a grocery store, and they put it in their weekly circular. I said, I got to go get that, and so I did. And no, it's great. It's like, this is like, I didn't have any money. I was a poor ass student, but it's this is like a dream come true, my friend. So
I got you.
My brother had one. I don't know if you're on them, but he was an electrical engineering student up at the University of Minnesota, and a bunch of his peers up there developed a terminal program for it. So he used it at home, and he talked to the mainframe at the university all the time on it.
So you could run COBOL programs.
Wow. Let's not get too excited. I worked for a bank for 15 years. I managed never to touch a line of COBOL. I'm so proud of myself.
Christian, you had said you were having some sort of problem with your 2068?
Well, it's just a bit on the flaky side. I can demonstrate here if you like for me to, just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm pretty confident that it's all in the computer instead of on the Pico attachments, which was sold by you know who. He might be in the chat right now. Let me get this camera readjusted. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Dave, you might want to highlight them.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Let's see. Can everybody see this okay?
Yeah.
All right. I don't know what it's going to do the first time, but switching it on. Okay, that's the first thing that I see pop up.
Okay.
It would be a black screen, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
With white borders.
Yep.
And what I do is that, well,
Christian, I'll tell you exactly what's going on. Your SD card is not fully inserted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that crazy blinking pattern.
Yeah.
Pull it out and stick it in again.
Can't understand
it. It's kind of, yeah. And if that doesn't fix it, get a new SD card.
Try that now.
Yeah, okay. So I think that SD card is not any good. Do this real quick for me. Since you have it powered off, pull the Pico card out.
Okay. I'm pulling it out.
Yeah. Okay, now try turning it on.
Okay. Put it on.
Cool. Yeah, it's your SD
well,
card.
That did that. Okay. Oh, this was another thing I've noticed. I don't know how often it does that, but if you can see real quick,
I can see it.
There's some black dots up there.
Press enter, and then press V, I think, which would be CL. Press enter first on your keyboard.
Okay, enter.
And then V.
Lowercase or uppercase?
It doesn't matter.
Just
you're going to get CLS.
Yeah.
Now press enter again.
There we go. Enter.
Okay.
Probably has bad RAM or something.
Yeah. It sometimes gets a random pixel on startup, basically, is the issue. But all right, so thank you, Christian. What we'll do is I'll set up a separate Zoom with you to figure out what's going on. But your 2068 works just fine.
So the issue must be in the in this SD card
Yep.
thingamajig
Yep, that's
that I've
exactly
got
the
here.
problem of a flaky SD card. Yeah. So
Hmm. Well, and
that's
here
okay.
I was thinking it was in the computer. At one point, as I was fiddling around with it, flipping it on and off a few times, it acted, it brought up a color pattern as if it was on LSD or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes, that'll happen. Yeah, rapid power cycling will do that. Yeah.
Well,
Could be a wrong format of the SD card.
Yeah, I
It's
think
not
that there's
patched that it's
something wrong
true.
with the SD card, Gustavo.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
maybe I ought to try getting a whole new card and see what happens.
Yep. Yep. But you do have to format it and you have to put a special folder on it for the Pico to be happy. But that's in the
I would
manual.
like to. Oh, it is.
Yeah. Um,
I must. I must have not read it through and through because I didn't know how to. Well, I didn't know that was what was required. I'll just say it that way.
mhm, mhm. It's okay. Um,
So that's that's what I get for not reading the manual.
no worries, Christian. I'll connect with you separately. We'll sort out what's going on. We can take our time
I
with it.
greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey Joe,
Yep.
you want to show us your uh Sponzi stuff and
Sure.
your RAM? Let me spotlight you.
Now let me change cameras. There we go.
It's out of
Okay.
focus.
Yeah, I see that. I had it set up before.
Hmm.
Oh, that's annoying. It was working.
That's what everything looks like when I'm not wearing my glasses. So
Yeah, right. Me too.
maybe if I take my glasses off.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, that one.
Let's see if it helps. Nope.
Well, that's my old webcam. That's what I get for using the old webcam. Here, let me
Okay.
go switch back to the new webcam, and I'm gonna throw this one in the trash, I think. No, I'll take it apart just to see because
Yeah, right.
that's what I do.
See if you can focus it right.
Why will it not let me switch? There we go. All right. So I was working on the Sponzi, and sorry for the naked ZX81. I hope I don't offend anybody.
But tell everybody what Sponzi means first.
Not
Sponzi,
safe for work. Yeah.
it's a lot of the Spectrum ROM kind of shoehorned into a 16K ROM that will work with the ZX81 ULA. So a lot of the same commands that are on the Spectrum are then transferred over to the ZX81. Of course, you don't have any of the color commands, but it does have draw and
Read and data, right?
yeah, read data and restore
Yeah.
and merge in, out, all those
Yeah,
kind of
a lot of
things
things
that
that were
we were
really
really missing in the original 8K ROM from Sinclair. So yeah, so I was playing with it and it was limited by 16K, and I was kind of irritated by that a little bit, and I wanted to do a 48K Sponzi. So I was looking at different ways of mapping the memory, and I stumbled across the Wolf Richter. He had a series of articles on different ways to map memory for the ZX81.
Mhm.
And so I tried one on a breadboard or a perf board type thing, and it kind of sort of worked. And then I did another one and it kind of sort of worked better. And I finally realized that my main problem was all the flying leads and poor connections and that kind of stuff. So I went ahead and did the Chinese board manufacturer and developed just a real quick what do I want to say, amalgamation of a couple different Wolf Richter designs into one. And so I don't know if can you see this better on this camera, or is it still
Yeah.
out of focus? But yeah, so it's just a board that fits here. Currently, it's using a 128K RAM and then a decoder chip. I'm gonna shrink this down and use a 64K RAM. This is just stuff that I happen to have, in the junk box. So I said, well, yeah, I'll just build it out of that and see how well it works. So that's the initial design. I went ahead and uploaded the files to make this board onto Dave's was it
The Google Drive? Okay.
Yeah, the Google Drive for you to share.
Yep.
With
Okay.
anybody that wants to play with it. And as soon as I get the other one done and I verify it works properly, then I'll upload that one. But I plan on using a 64K cache chip, which are pretty cheap. Pulls off old boards that you can get from China, and just use that, which is a much skinnier chip. It's only the same width as a regular TTL logic, so it'll be even a smaller board. And
you had a custom keyboard.
Yeah, this is like version 2 of my custom keyboard. I've got a much better one than that out there. It's already posted. It has a full-size space bar. It's all 3D printable. There's no circuit board for it. I didn't want to do a circuit board one. I wanted to relive my youth and do a wire wrap kind of or a point soldering keyboard.
Point to point, yeah.
That's what I made. So it's all point to point soldered. What do I say? Wire wrap wire, basically. You can buy big spools of it from Amazon for really cheap, and yeah.
Cool.
Before we continue, I just wanted to ask, I think we've covered this with the Sponzi before when we've talked about it briefly, or maybe on the board, but so you have to have 64K or not?
Oh no,
you can 48K addressable?
You can run it with 16K.
Yeah.
But it has to be static RAM, and it has to be so because of the way the ZX81 kind of builds the video while it's halting the CPU, right? And then there's refresh cycles for the RAM in there that have to be taken care of. It's stealing that refresh cycle time. So the Sponzi uses that time to build a more high-res display. Okay, so that's where you get the extra time to build the higher res display, and it's also considerably faster. I don't know if you've ever just to use BASIC to type, print 1 through 10, a little 4nex loop, how slow it is, right? Sponzi is I guess about 6 or 7 times faster. So it's kind of neat. The only real problem that I run into playing with it is when I save a file out of the tape port, right? It's saving it with the tone that you normally hear from a Spectrum or a 2048 or 2068, and you do the same tone. But instead of it being FM modulated, it's the old 9 and 4 pulses.
Oh, the 81 method versus the Spectrum method. Joe, you're kind of cutting out.
Well, this is kind of interesting because I was working on something similar to this, Joe, that because I got Ryan's ZX81 in for we need to do a keyboard replacement on it, right? Because we had finally cut it down so low that you really couldn't cut it down anymore to fit it, to get it plugged into the motherboard. Anyway, so while I had that in, I also was doing the ROM cartridge right, that replaces the ROMs in the ZX81. And Sponzi was one of the ROMs that I tested with. In fact, the ROM card is kind of my background right now. And so the ROM card will do 8K or 16K ROMs. And I demonstrated this. I don't think Adam really saw it, but I know Ryan saw it when we were at the little get together.
Albuquerque Retro Group.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the problem that I had with my 1500 prototype thingy is I don't have it set up for high res graphics, right? For HRG. And so it would boot it, but of course the screen it's got a lot of artifacting on it, right? Because it can't, the refresh cycles and all that stuff where you kind of mentioned, that's not set up right. So while I had Ryan's ZX81 in, I upgraded his machine so that it does do HRG, right? So it's the 2 diodes and a resistor pull up, and to the chip select, right, to the RAM, and it works, right? Sponzi works fine with this ROM cartridge thing, and the display works fine. But with that, I was kind of thinking, well, there's other HRG methods, right? There's the 10K resistor pull up on the right line. There's also the M1 NOT, right, for running machine code above 32K, right? So I was kind of looking at Hot Z, right, with the Memotech version or whatever Ray was doing with that, because that relocates Hot Z outside of RAM, right, and loads it all up into higher RAM or higher, areas in the memory, so you have the full 16K of your normal space to write code, right? So you can make a big, huge machine language program, and Hot Z is not interfering with any of it. Anyway, you have to have RAM higher up, right, in the 32K, above 32K, which you also kind of mentioned with the video generation. That's how the ULA knows it's trying to generate video. Is if A15 is high, right, so 32K to 64K memory space, that's when it kind of triggers the ULA to start doing video generation. Well, it's not triggering it, but it kind of lets it know that, hey, you can do that at that time. But to run machine code, that kind of puts a kibosh on it, because it can't run machine code above 32K because of that fact. So you have to put some circuitry in there to allow it to still do that and still generate video. I guess I'll share the screen, but this is a 3D rendering of the board that I designed, because it's kind of funny, like you said, you're doing this board, and let me share the screen. So I don't know. I think you guys could see that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit wider than your board, and I kind of was worried about that because I think the issue 3 boards, the chips are rearranged on the motherboard in the ZX81, so it's kind of closer. But I think this will still fit that. I haven't actually had this sent out to build. I mean, it's ready. It's already, JLC PCB has it. And there's this guy here. You kind of see this DerX81. He came up with a way to you kind of intercept the A15 and the A14 lines from the ULA, right? So you can kind of feed it what you want instead of feeding it what the computer's actually doing. So that's kind of how he's doing the M1 NOT. And then you can run a switch to it so you can disable it, because there's some things that you can't have that on all the time, because if the video, this is kind of getting technical, I realize it, but if the video screen area actually pushes above 32K boundary, right, the machine will crash if you have the M1 NOT mod enabled, right? So you have to have a way to disable that if you make a huge basic program and it pushes the display file above the 32K boundary. The other part of this whole thing, again, is to have RAM in from 32K to 48K, right? A lot of these RAM mods, they'll put the RAM up way high, right? They'll put it from 48K to 64K in the memory space, right? Well, I didn't really want that. I wanted, because one of the Hot Z's, the Memotech version, one of the Memotech versions that puts it in that 32K to 48K range. So I had to design this to allow the RAM to be contiguous, right? So you have system RAM from 16K all the way to 48K. Problem with that is I started, that's kind of why I haven't built this thing yet, is it's going to interfere with the 1510 cartridge because the cartridges, right, they run from 32K to basically, an 8K space right there for 32K to 40K. So this will totally interfere with that. Right. So if you had this internally, right, and you plugged a 1510 cartridge onto it, well, how do we deal with that? And I was trying to think about how to deal with that, and there's probably really no good way of dealing with it. Probably the best way to deal with it is to make a new cartridge board that actually has this RAM on it, has 32K of RAM on it, so it's an external RAM pack, right? It shuts off the internal RAM, and it would have all of this stuff on that cartridge board, external to the ZX81. And so you can kind of see on the bottom there is my main connector. So obviously you've got your address lines where you need to be able to address the higher, RAM capacity. There's the two A15 ULA pins, or A15 and A14. Then there's 3 switch pins, right? So you can enable and disable it. And then there's a read line. And there's also a capacitor because I guess, I don't know if you know, but some people have had, especially doing the HRG upgrade, you need to put a little bit of a capacitance on the RAM chip select line for it to work properly, I guess. I didn't have any problem with Ryan's machine. I mean, I put a basically 1,000 microfarad or picofarad, 1 nanofarad cap right on the board, and it worked fine. But this
that really depends on which Z80 you have and who made it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I think you're right there. Because I mean, I read a lot of. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was having a problem with it, garbling the video and intermittently, and I realized, oh, it's because I'm in between different tests and I'm moving the Z80s back and forth, because I was testing Z80s at the same time, right? And so I said, okay, well, I'm just going to do one after the other, and out of like the 5 that I tested, 3 of them worked great, and the other 2 were garbled video. And then they require the cap to be added. So yeah, it depends on the Z80, who made it, and that kind of stuff. I think the NEC ones that I have were all good.
Carl, can you stop staring or sharing your screen?
I'm trying to find out how do I do that. How do I stop sharing?
I can
do stop share. There it is. Bam. So I mean, there's a a lot of research that kind of had to go into this, and it's kind of funny. We're doing this on a 40-year-old machine. 40. But and it's ironic too that I think I've mentioned it to Adam and to Ryan that I'm doing all this hardware shit. Excuse my French, but on the ZX81, right? Why am I not doing so much on the 2068? But then again, you got David and Gustavo and Richard. They're doing the Pico stuff, which is really cool for the 2068. But I think I kind of got wrapped up into this when I was doing the whole 1510 cartridge board, right? When I started that project, and it's kind of grown from there because doing the ROM board, which has its own problems because some of the ROMs, again with the video generation, that's the big hurdle in this stupid, well, not stupid machine, but in the stupid design of this machine that prevents some of the ROMs that you can use. I think the ASMIC, the machine language ROM. Yeah, the ASMIC. I have to try that on my external board, but I don't think it'll work because it has to have access to the address, or I think it's the address lines before the resistor packs that are in there that isolate it. And it's like, you can't do that externally.
Okay.
There's some things you can do.
What about the Treeforth ROM?
I think that might work.
Okay.
That one might work, but because it really depends on if they have their own. I think the ASMIC has its own character set, right? And that is the problem with those, is because when the video generation happens, it's going to pull from the ROM. So if you have an external solution, it won't work that way. So, and there's nothing you can do about that, right? You just have to put it internal, where the ROM slot is, I know one guy that Derek's got. Oh no, another guy has a board that he designed that can do some of that video generation trickery on the
Mhm.
external. So I'm kind of looking at that too. But that's I don't know where I'll get with that. But
Okay.
I just kind of wanted to. It's kind of ironic that Joe's working on that. Kind of in conjunction with mine is because I'm combining a lot of the mods,
Yeah.
right? The high res graphics, the M1 not mod to run 32, machine code above 32K. It's just a bunch of things all in that one board.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of fun that he kind of was doing that unbeknownst to me. And we're both working on this 40 plus year old black and white, soundless, crappy
You can
doorstop
put it,
machine.
Carl. Nothing prevents you from putting a sound chip in the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I haven't got the Chroma 81 yet, but that had all that stuff in it, right? Color and
Yeah,
sound to
color
the
and sound.
ZX81. Yeah.
So, this is your newest card with the displays, or no?
This is the ROM card that I've got in the background. So
Yeah.
so as you probably mentioned, there's some stuff on the forums. I mean, this is the actual board, but I don't think it's not gonna show it. But yeah,
Okay.
so I just got these in, I don't know, a
So
couple of weeks
tiny.
ago. Yeah, well, this is the ROM board,
Did you
Yeah.
think the one in
and
the background was life size or what?
well, that's what I think from JLC PCB. When you look at it, you're looking at the render of it. But it has a dip switch. You can kind of see on my head there up in the upper left, right? It's a 4-position dip switch.
Yep. Yep.
And then of course I use some PCB trickery, since the ROM or the flash chip there, which is the big 28 pin up
Yeah.
here,
U5.
is going to be in a socket, right? So there is actually a 74, well, it's an HC157 that's actually soldered to the board underneath it, right? Because when you have a socket, you've got that open space in between in there. So I'm kind of using
Hmm.
that real estate to double stack.
Okay.
I do that similarly on the other board you're mentioning, right? This is the cartridge board.
You got to put it in front of your shirt. There you go.
This is the cartridge board, and this is the one with the displays, and it also uses the same technique, right? Because it uses a programmable logic chip in there to emulate a 74LS74, which is a BCD to 7-segment decoder chip, right, from the old school days.
Yeah.
But that chip didn't decode blind hex, right? If you went beyond 9, like to A, it just displayed some kind of weird shit, right? So he fixed that in his design, and so I just basically copied his design. So yeah, it does the whole hex thing, and that's how it runs that display. And then of course it uses a huge EEPROM, a 4 megabit EEPROM, right, 512K by 8
Yeah.
EEPROM, so we can have 32 programs on
Programs.
that cartridge, right, that are well, you could have 64 8Ks, but you can't differentiate between the two, right? It's gonna, it can only do one cartridge at a time, so it's either an 8K or 16K. It doesn't really matter to the board.
Jay
But
wants
those that
to
came in. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
Jay wants to know if there's heat problems with the ROM board, Jay, the cartridge board.
Heat problems. Well, I'm trying to see
Oh, the
the chat.
74 runs. Oh, he means with the buried, the double stacking. Yeah, no,
Oh
that,
no, no, there's no heat problem. No, these things don't draw that much. Um, but yeah, so that I was kind of waiting on some, because this original design that I had, I used somebody else's footprint for some stuff, so it turns out it was skinnier than a regular dip switch.
Hmm.
So I changed that, and I mean I can make it work, but it's not ideal. So I'm like I can't live with that. I can sleep at night, but it's a little harder. So now I fixed that, and the ROM board was, well, where are you? Here you are. This was the big problem for the ROM board is the interface. This is what actually plugs into the computer,
yeah,
right? And then the cartridge plugs into this.
yeah.
In the design that I had, in fact, this is an older board. Again, I used somebody else's footprint, and the chip that's here, the what is it, the 138 74 LS 138.
Yeah.
I don't know why they used a narrower pinout. It's not 300 mils. It's maybe 250
Oh, weird.
or something like that. So I have to really push the pins in.
Mhm.
I can get it on there, but it's like, so again, I couldn't sleep at night, so I had that redone, and those new boards came in as well. So I've got the new boards. I just haven't had the time, and I know that Kevin, I think, already actually paid me for some of that stuff. So I've got to get working on it and get that all built up. And but I mean, the ROM stuff works. I did have to change some logic. I had some miswiring on the PCB, and I think Rich J was also, tried it too, breadboarding it,
Mhm.
and he couldn't get it to work. And I was like, well, I don't know about that, but mine didn't work either initially. But I went through it, and okay, I had some logic problems on it, and cut the board and did my bodges, and holy crap, I got it to work. So Sponzi works on this cartridge board, right? And then you can have 3 other ROMs on there.
Interesting.
And so it's kind of nice. I think one of the ROMs I used was the Timex store demonstrator ROM,
Yeah.
right? Which was I've never seen that, I don't think, in my life. Maybe I did, but God, it's so long ago. I don't know. That might have been something else, but that's a cool little demo to have, and you don't have to build the circuit, right? Because Timex actually had a whole board
Yep.
that you plugged into the back of the 1000 that made that whole thing work. Well, this one, you just put the ROM on the chip, throw it in this cartridge board, and set your dip switches and boot it up, and bam, you're running the Timex demonstrator ROM. I think the one guy actually had to change some coding, a couple of lines I know he mentioned in his GitHub.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because
Yeah,
it was the design of the the little Timex board was a little wonky in terms of where it put stuff in memory, if I recall
okay,
correctly.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
changed those things, saved that ROM onto it, and like I said, it worked. It worked fine. The Sponzi did too, but like I said, it had all the artifacting because it wasn't set up for HRG. But now on Ryan's machine, using that ROM cartridge, it works fine.
Wow.
Yeah. The only problem with the Sponzi is, I mean, it might be faster, but if you have a lot of shit on the screen or you're scrolling, that's kind of slow.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not like, like a jump, because it has to like refresh the whole screen, so you see the whole screen kind of scroll, and it slows it down. Right. It's not
So
really, really fast scrolling.
is Sponzi then using well, I mean, if it's using the 81's ULA, it's using the mechanism that the 81 uses for building a screen and
Right.
not a pixel map screen like the Spectrum.
Right. Well, I
Okay.
guess it does because it's using Wolf's, high HRG graphics.
Right,
So
but
you
it's
have,
still,
right.
I've been reading a lot about machine code programming on the 2068, and in particular, um, how you draw stuff on the screen, and um, in short, the 81 is more character based in
Hmm.
terms of putting stuff on the screen, whereas the Spectrum and the 2068 are are entirely pixel based screens. So
Right.
like when you put, when you pass a string to the appropriate, ROM call in the 2068, it goes and it reads out, the pixel values and draws those on the screen. It doesn't just say drop the A right there and drop the next
Well,
level.
and that's a good differentiator between the two systems, is because the 2068 actually has dedicated, well, what I call dedicated video RAM. Right?
Yeah.
That lower 16K is wired to the SCLD chip or the ULA and the Spectrum,
Yeah.
so that it can read it in conjunction with either writing to it, or the RAM, the CPU can also put stuff in there. Whereas the ZX81, right, there is no dedicated display file per se. I mean, there's a display file there, but if you had a 1K machine, it's a collapsed display
Well,
file.
yep. Yep.
Right? And I think you had to get up to about 6K-ish of RAM, system RAM, for it to actually say, "Oh, well, you've got enough RAM. I can put the whole display file in there."
All the time. Yeah.
Right? And because it took up like 6144 bytes if you had a fully expanded display file in the ZX81.
Yeah.
Right? So if you
No,
had less,
it's actually like 3/4 K.
Which
oh,
one?
is it?
Well, it's like 24 by 33 bytes.
Oh no, we're talking about the amount of RAM that a 2068 screen takes.
Yeah, 2068 screen, yeah, 6K.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's where I'm getting it mixed up. But there's somewhere in there between the 4 to 6K boundary where when it checks RAM in the ZX81, it's like, okay, you've got enough. I'm going to make a full display file.
If it's more, I think it said if it's more than 3.5K.
Okay.
Approximately.
So,
like
and that
4K
display file moves around.
Yeah.
It's not set anywhere like it is on the 2068, right? And that's kind of why I kind of mentioned the fact of the M1 not mod, that if you have that enabled and you push the display file past the 32K boundary, the machine will crash, right? So you have to turn off the M1 not. Well, basically it'd be stock at that point, so it wouldn't crash. You could actually push the display file into the upper 32K region and it will not crash the machine if it was a stock machine. But you couldn't run any machine code, which, not a lot of people probably doing that. But, if you had a Memotech 32K RAM pack, right, or the 64K Memotech, that's where a lot of these little trickery things had to be built into those RAM packs to allow machine code to run above the 32K boundary because of the way, that machine generated video, because it uses M1 line of the Z80 and it uses A15, right? So it knows when the Z80 is trying to execute a code and it kind of forces a NOP. That's why it needs the resistors on the data lines, right? Because it forces it to 0. Because it's not actually trying to execute code, it's trying to generate video. And so it doesn't want the Z80 to execute any code. So it kind of puts on zeros on the data bus, which is a NOP. Right, a NOP opcode, so it doesn't do anything, but it still needs the Z80 to progress the address and data lines and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of a, complicated video method. If you ever read how that generates it in the ZX81, it's certainly much simpler in the 2068.
So speaking of which, that's a good segue to Jon on the groups.io list. Decided to use one of these special 2068 modes. There's a special mode that lets you activate 2 display
Can you make
files.
that a little clearer, David? Because it's very blurry.
Is it really? Shit.
Yeah.
I wish I could. Let me.
At least it is for me. I don't know if it is for
Oh,
everybody.
that's even worse, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah. Why is this?
The days of manual focus rings.
Well, and it's not even a focus ring. This is just the output of my my little video converter board, and it's fine on my screen, but why is it blurry here? Let's see.
The joys of technology.
Crap. All right. Well, I'm gonna turn that off for a sec. Select a different. Well, shoot. You're gonna have to see it in blurry, and then you know what I'll do is I'll just like drop it in a replacement from Fuse. Anyway.
Your background is off too, in case you want it back on.
Yeah. Maybe I'll just bring it up in Fuse. So anyway, Jon wrote this program that uses the special display mode in the 2068 where you can load up some animations and then it just flips them really quickly. So he took this classic animation from the Amiga of a person juggling not a person, some sort of weird figure juggling a ball or balls.
Right.
Took
called the
4
juggler
frames.
demo.
Took 4 frames for that.
So are you saying, David, that he's using both display files, because the 2068 can have 2 display files?
Exactly.
Right? So, okay.
Yes. And then he's rapidly moving, if I recall correctly, I think he said he was using the Z80 LDIR instruction to rapidly move you know, essentially a frame into the display file. So I'm gonna just see if I can get this to, is that right? All right, let's see if I can share this with you. I have to do that sharing there. All right, there's fuse. Okay. So and John's question on the groups list was, well, has anybody tried this on real hardware? So I was hoping I was going to be able to show that to you, but
You still can show us something blurry. It's fine.
Adam's glasses are apparently
put up
not
my
very
nose to
sharp
that.
tonight. So this is the program, right? It's very short. There's this thing that clears some space for machine code. It loads the machine code that does the juggling, and then it does these calls to switch between the things. And this is going to run a lot better and faster in Fuse. One of the things that you did not get to see in Fuse was when you load something from tape, it displays on the screen loading, this file, then loading the next file, etc. And that actually happens on the 2068 because the load is fast with the Pico, but not so fast that it obliterates, it doesn't, render those messages. I don't think there's any way to get out of this other than to reset the machine. So I'm going to do that, yes. And I'm going to load. That was Juggler, and then here's Snake. And you'll see it's the same program, but just with there's four
different screens,
4 frames. Yeah, Snake 0, 2, 5, and 7. That's just, it's
That's
mesmerizing,
right?
And I'll do the third one that he sent us.
Yeah, this one's the trippy one.
Yep. Yeah. And I've run all 3 of these on the real 2068. Look cool.
Yeah.
So
cool.
when you load this on the real 2068, you can see each frame load, and then it switches to this where
I wonder why he decided not to hide them while they load or something. I guess so you'd know something's happening.
So that's right, exactly. That's the thing that I was going to write to Jon and say you can judiciously set the ink and paper commands. It won't actually hide it, but it'll semi-hide it. If you set the paper and the ink to the same color, at least you won't see the text. You'll see the bar where the thing went. Yeah, so that was.
Wait, say that again, David. You won't see the text.
You won't see the text itself, but you'll see the space where it prints out. If you set the ink to the same color as the paper, when you go to load, you know what? I'm going to just show you the fuzzy. You're just going
to you can hide that, but when the screen comes in, you can't hide that. As far as I know.
Just for a little late. I wonder if one of these buttons.
Yeah, probably if he really wanted to do that, he should load that into RAM somewhere else. Right?
You can hide. You can hide it
going into the display file. It's when you load it, because I think
you can hide the screen until the attributes come in.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
Although I do have a sinking feeling that the Atari and Commodore folks at that time would be just laughing their asses off at that kind of crappy.
Right.
Another issue, you need to synchronize the refresh rate in the screen with the program. You need to detect the interrupt and also put and halt the CPU till refresh the second screen and then switch on the port 255 to enable the second display file. If you do that, you not see nothing to rewrite on the fly. It's perfect.
I'm going to spotlight this. I apologize. I have no idea why it's fuzzy, but
It'll make it look better, probably.
It'll probably look
It's
better.
like
Yeah.
it's like
Okay, but
it's
so
like
pay
it's
attention
from
here.
our fuzzy memory.
Yeah, pay attention first to the loading, the speed at which it loads versus what we just saw in Fuse, right? You see each individual frame, and I don't know if you saw the message.
Right. Oh no.
You know, actually, it doesn't
But
look too terrible with a little bit of defocusing.
yeah, because you don't really need it to be sharp for
Yeah.
this.
This is crazy to me. I mean,
Also,
the
I don't.
aspect ratio is wrong.
Carl or somebody might be able to, or Gustavo can give the details, but as I recall, LDIR is not the fastest block memory transfer the Z80 can do. It's just very convenient.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget where I read this, but basically, if you do it some manual way, you can actually go faster. I don't know how much faster, but
Oh, interesting.
not sure if
Can
it
you
matters.
possibly go faster than that? I think that's impossible.
No,
But
the
it's just-
in
Can you hear me?
instruction,
This is John.
the
Hi,
in
John.
instruction is better in time.
Hey,
Hi, guys.
Less clock.
Gustavo, let John talk.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, apologize for the audio quality. I am literally on a road trip right now. So, but yeah, so this was really just my attempt to do originally a quick exploration of AI code generation to see if I could do that on a Z80 and run something interesting on the 2068. So I started off with a simple dual display file demo that generated a checkerboard and rapidly switched between screens, and then ultimately changed, started to see what I could do as far as implementing multiple frames in memory to do the dual display, double buffered animation, and managed to get that working. And the trickiest part was the memory management. It was pretty tough to kind of get things configured up so I could get all 4 frames in memory.
So, John, how was it that you got the 4 frames configured?
So the trickiest part was kind of finding enough code space, and if you look at the assembly code, you can kind of see where that all is stored. But the trickiest part was just figuring out how to configure things so that I could get the code at close to the top of memory, but still have enough room to have all the code necessary. And in the end, I couldn't fit everything that I wanted to in. I wanted to add some more features, like being able to break out of it with the keyboard and that kind of thing, and just couldn't get there. Probably, with a little bit more careful work, you could probably get some more of those features in. I wanted to leave it sort of flexible so you could do sequences of 3-frame animations, or some other options as well. But all that code just added up to too much and just wouldn't fit in the space necessary. Probably with some optimization you could get it all in there, but anyway, it was really just supposed to be a real simple experiment to see if I could do this AI code generation, and by and large that worked. I of course still had to start from something, and I started from the original descriptions in the technical manual, but in the end I just ended up using some sample code from an old demo in one of the newsletters that I imagine David helped archive at some point.
Well, no, it's still pretty impressive that you actually used AI to the AI actually generated the Z80 code for you for 2068. That's crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was kind of the whole purpose of my little holiday programming excursion here. But yeah, it turned into something a little bit more interesting in the end.
Yeah, John, you actually inspired me with the AI thing to go down on several rabbit holes on another system called the Astrocade, and I was using it to comment some basic code and write some basic code, and I I quote typed in, but really the AI typed in some basic programs.
Yeah.
And I had it also make sure well, I tried to help make sure that there were no errors in the listing, but of course it failed. But it did better than I did when I was a teenager typing
Right.
things in.
Yeah. Yeah. For my original demo generating a checkerboard in the 2068 screen display, it actually did really well. I ended up kind of describing the 2068's memory arrangement, and it generated code for that. And then it generated some fabulous code for doing this variable timing, where it kind of slowly switched between screens and then got faster and faster, and then until it was going really fast, and then finally slowed down to about, from about 20 hertz switching to about 1 hertz switching. And so I didn't have to write any of that timing code. It worked perfectly for that. And that was all just describing. I didn't really set parameters or anything. So that was pretty impressive.
And John, you posted that checkerboard one to the group's list, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. So I'll download that and try that out too. I'm curious to see how that runs on the real hardware.
Yeah, I'd certainly be interested as well. So.
Okay, so I have one more question for you.
Yeah, sure.
You have 2 active display files, but 4 screens.
Yes.
How are you switching those out?
Yes. So essentially there's enough memory in the 2068 for 6 frames, but 2 of those are actually the hardware display file. And so there are 4 buffers that are located in memory. So, and that was kind of the purpose of that, that basic program was kind of meant to keep everything very easy to use so that you could kind of, very quickly customize a new animation and just have it all configured from basic. And so what happens is those routines copy, you load an image into just the regular first display file, which is displayed on screen, and then execute a routine which copies it into one of the 4 image buffers that are kind of pre-allocated. So there are individual routines for each of those copies. And so that stores each image into those buffers one by one. And then finally you run the animation routine, which doesn't exit currently, but then cycles between copying each of those images to the appropriate display file 1 or display file 2, while which it's displaying the other display file and doing the copy to the one that's not being displayed. So you get the double buffering effect. Okay. And then, switches between it once. And there is actually a short delay in there as well. So it could actually animate a little bit faster than it is animating currently. But so yeah. And then, for like a sequence of 4, it works pretty well. But for a sequence of 3, because you have to copy to the first one and the second one and go back and forth, you're out of sync. So you have to actually have code to display 6 frames before you get back to the original sequence. So it's kind of a special sequence to do that animation.
You're copying, I'm assuming you're copying the even frames into display file 1 and the odd frames into display file 2.
That's basically right. So yeah, for a sequence of 3, you've got to do it a couple of times before you get back to the start.
Interesting. Wow, very cool, John. Very cool.
Well, I do want you to do your one of the images you sent that you haven't converted yet is that C3PO one. Are you going to convert?
Yeah, I did play with it a little bit. It wasn't as interesting as I was hoping it would be, but yeah, there's there are some other interesting possibilities there. I think the ones that work really well are these kind of fractal ones where you have a lot of, the movement is very small, and then you get this effective repetition, like with the snake animation. You don't need very many frames to get a lot of smooth movement on screen. And so, yeah, doing an actual video, I'm still trying to think of interesting video subjects. I remember there was an interesting one I might try of 5 Sinclair jumping over, some other computers in a commercial one. So maybe I'll try that one.
What and
Yep.
John, the other thing that
Oh,
the other thing that I was really curious to see in your animations was how how the color clash problem got resolved. And with the juggling, there's one real obvious flash on one of the frames, sort of in the middle of the juggler. But with the grid and with the snakes, the highlighting on the in terms of the yellow highlighting of on the red snake skin,
that's right.
not even a problem. And
That's right.
with the grid thing, it's just so much color and so much quick motion that you can't really even pick up on that color clash thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how that works. Color kind of has a lower resolution for a reason in your brain, I think.
Fill in the blanks. Yeah, that was beautiful. That was awesome. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yeah. Remember, in the cinema you have 24 frames per second.
Yep.
And the update time of the one single screen in Timex or Spectrum is around 45 milliseconds. And if you need to run at the, 30 or 15 frames per second, you need any update around 17 or milliseconds approximately. Is similar to the interrupt
to
cycle.
The keyboard.
Yeah, exactly. You need to use this function. If you enable the XROM, you get a call at the middle of the RAM at the dispatcher. You can use, in this point, you catch the interrupt and then use this as your needed to switch, for example, the main screen to show. Okay, if you set up the port 255, you can set, okay, at the SCLD, okay, show the screen 0 or show the screen 1. And when the SCLD access to this part of the memory, you can work in another part without any interrupt on the video. That is the method.
Very tight timing.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I bet the AI is not going to figure that out immediately.
No, could be possible, and the handle is better than the Spectrum. That is the availability with this machine, not with the Spectrum.
Yeah. Hey, Adam.
Oh yeah.
I saw you holding up something.
Oh well, this is really Ryan's thing. This is so Ryan should probably talk about it. But this is his calendar. I don't know. Can you see it? Okay. Anyway, so anyone who's been watching the group has had access to this, but I printed it out actually during this very meeting. And what is there, four per page? So anyway,
you didn't print that out on the 2040. You printed
that's the ding right there.
No,
see, we're gonna take points off for
I
that.
have a special 2040. It's a wide carriage 2040. Okay.
It's a wide carriage. It's a 2080.
Hey, Ryan, maybe he can talk about that a little because he rescued a program from back in the 80s to make that.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the same smell, man. The paper
it doesn't.
Have
no,
the same
thank
smell.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that smell, man. That's great.
Hey, Ryan.
Okay.
I'm gonna spotlight you.
Well, when I did put it together a couple of years ago, I did print one out. Whoops.
Oh, see, Ryan knows how it's done.
Look at that shine. That crumble paper shine.
Don't keep that in the daylight for very much time there, Ryan. You want to put that in a folder.
Yeah, so I kept wanting to. Last year I had to punt because I was trying to make it to where you could. Well, I was trying to make one where you loaded. You can load some string from tape instead of these generated images, which is what I had to just stick in ultimately a set of these things. Because because I was trying to make a bunch of string pictures from various pictures from the group, but the converter program kept using crazy attribute choices so that when you would print it, it just prints the pixel data. It doesn't take into account the attributes, so it comes out really strange looking. Many of you probably have seen that. If you try to copy certain screens, it'll come out strange because they've used the color attributes to make the block mostly black, but it's actually just a bunch of unset pixels, so it just comes out white on the printout, that kind of thing. So I didn't get a bunch of pictures converted to my liking, and so I punted and made this thing that generated these little spirograph like circle things,
kaleidoscope kind of
for
things.
each month. And then even that ran into problems because I would pick a random multiple for the arc size, and some of them would look terrible. So, you know, I ultimately just had to find some good looking ones and wire those into a data statement. So they're, but anyway, the calendar program I was just remembering I couldn't find where it was, and I guess I haven't recovered it from my tapes yet. So I basically recomposed it based on the calendar. I had an old printout from '86 where I'd done it. It's here somewhere, but I said, well, I remember, you know, I had a program that used, there was a calendar calculation thing in the Fort Worth User Group tape. I said, well, I got that, so I just went and grabbed that code and then just wrote a thing to kind of do what I did before, where load a screen. I had the font that I used for the month, the two fonts stacked to make the month, the tall font.
Yeah, a little taller bit.
And so, well, I got the font, I've got the calendar code, and I just basically recreated the program, and then worked on it a bit. So I was just here. I printed one out, and then and what I did do before was I'd worked out that, you know, if you run in the emulator, all the printout pixel data goes to a printout PBM file in your home folder, and you can before you start the emulator, you delete that file so it starts over. Then you run the emulator, load the program, print the month, and it'll be a big tall PBM file. And then you can use ImageMagick command to chop that up in a couple ways that I gave an example for, and turn that into a PDF. And then you can print easily. And so I was just doing a thing right now where I was adding. I realized that you might want some more space. I'd always wanted to make where you had more space in each date, or maybe even write something if you printed it one page. So I was adding a thing in there to print it with more vertical space, and then working out what I wanted to do there. So I guess I might just pick a certain number of lines, and then easier if it was a fixed number of lines. That way I knew, could just give a new size, vertical size for that ImageMagick commands to work on.
Are you going to put this, because I think you sent it out to the groups list, right?
Yeah, so when I get the update, I'll update there too.
Okay. Are you going to put it somewhere like GitHub? I mean, I'll put it on the website.
Yeah, I need to work on all that of getting these onto the GitHub.
Okay.
That kind of brings up another point, you know, because I know Ryan had fixed some of the programs that we have on the cartridge, right, over the holiday break. At least I know I think you voicemailed me or sent me something about that, Ryan, that you actually fixed most of the problems. Because another thing at the little get together we had with the other group is I kind of showed Ryan some of the issues, right, that since I can put all the stuff that we've converted so far onto one ROM chip, one flash chip, I can show them all the programs. so we can run through all of them and see which one had some issues, and some of them had some minor.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if I missed some of the issues you mentioned.
Yeah, I'll go through it and see, because you said you uploaded them into a different folder. But that, again, we need to, that kind of segues into, we need to get that available for everybody, right? Because some people can program their own chips, right? So they can, because I know that's kind of what Kevin, I think, is going to do. He wants some boards from me, but it's like I can program my own EPROMs or flash chips on there. And I was like, that's fine. I don't really have any heartache about that, but it's just, where do we get them, right? So if we convert more, or other people convert them, because now I think Kevin's also fixed major executables in Windows, right, for the ROM.
Yeah, so he helped
program.
He helped me with, fix a couple of bugs that were making the Windows versions not work correctly. So we got those fixed, and he generated Windows and Mac executables. So I've put those on my GitHub in the latest release. Binaries are in that for Mac, Windows, and 64-bit Raspberry Pi.
So kind of, the ultimate thing I wanted to do with this, 1510 cartridge thing is to give, the mass folks out there the opportunity to convert their own programs into a cartridge, right? That's kind of, we can do that, of course. That's kind of how we learned and iterated on that. And now we're kind of, especially with your program, to be able to take a ZX81 or, 1000 program and put it into, you can make a cartridge out of it. So, it's just, if you're going to use real hardware, I know Adam's probably over there, getting ready to throw all his real hardware away. But
no, actually, I don't have that. That was Ryan's. That was his ZX81 that you're working on. He had lent it to me.
Well, no, a lot of people do things in emulation, and I'm not knocking it.
No. I love real
hardware.
I know.
Yeah. I'm just giving you a hard time.
Okay.
I know you have a bunch of, real hardware, and same thing with me. I do like to run it on the real thing. And it's the collector in me as well. I want to make, I could do it in emulation, but it's just not the same, right? Obviously. But, hey, if you've got space limitations, or, you don't want to have the old stuff, like I said, I'm not knocking emulation. But you just, you can't buy one of my cartridge boards and plug it into an emulator. Right? So I don't make any money. Not that I'm making a lot of money on that anyway, but it's just, it's kind of the feeling you get of giving back to the community, something for a 45-year-old machine that, you can load up these huge programs that would take 5 minutes, 6, 8, 10 minutes on a tape, right? And they load instantly, right? That's kind of where it's really begins to get fun, because then you take all that wasted time of waiting for it to load, and then of course you'll inevitably get the error at the end where something didn't happen right. And so basically, now you wasted. You better go heat up another Hot Pocket or something, because you're going to have to do it all over again. And so, now that you've got it in solid state storage, it's going to work every single time, and it's going to load damn near instantly, right? So now you can start.
So when are you going to find time to heat up your food? Well,
you better do it before, because and then eat it too, because you're going to be pushing those crappy keys on the 1000's keyboard to move things around. But anyway, that's kind of I really appreciate Ryan's work on that, because he's done the software side of it. Yeah, I've done the hardware thing, and it's not even my design, right? It's just basically a copy of the Timex design. And I know Ryan had mentioned that, and I had thought about it at a point too, that we don't have to do it that way, right? We don't have to do it Timex's way. We can do it whatever way we want to do it. And so I kind of mentioned with that RAM board, it's going to kibosh if you have them together. The cartridge board wouldn't work, right? Because it's going to try to access the internal static RAM and the ROM cartridge at the same time, and there's no real way to stop that from happening, because the RAM is inside the machine, wired to the internals, right? And how are you going to get to any of that? And so that's why, we could change how it loads cartridges. We could make it all one contiguous file, because the way it is now, the way Timex had it, you have to break up the 16K programs into two 8K, right? And you have to put them in different memory locations in the machine address space, and where we could actually change that if we wanted to, right? It would make it incompatible with the original, but there was only 4 cartridges to begin with, so and they weren't really that great cartridges. Maybe Flight Simulator was pretty decent, but who has that? I'm lucky I got one of those things for real, but I don't think there's that many of those out there. So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling a little bit here, but I just wanted to mention that now that I've got the new boards in, I'll get some time here this week probably and build some of those up. So I'll make a post on the the groups IO that have those available.
Yeah.
So if any of you are looking to pick up a set or some extras or whatever, then let me know on the board.
Cool. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah,
that's so cool. That's all I really want to say about it. I want Jay has asked for a Pico update status, and let me put it this way. Having many sets of eyes look at the code has been absolutely fantastic, because not only did we, not me, other people, identified various bugs, but Ryan and Ricardo have managed to squash those bugs. And so the new, it's what we're calling 1.1C right now, version is really reliable. The upgrade process is, when we started doing this, a couple of years ago, I thought the upgrade process might involve me sending out flash chips to people to, plug into their thing, or it might be, some painful stuff involving connecting your computer to the Pico. Ricardo has streamlined it as much as he can, such that most of it, you'll copy a special folder onto the SD card, and that will do 90% of the upgrade. And then he's also working on some code to upgrade the flash ROM image on the fly as well, without having to send stuff out. So it's really amazing what they've done, and the amount of time has been worth it. So it'll be this spring that we're going to be sending out stuff to people saying upgrade.
David, is it considered to be an open-ended project where it's not really going to have an end, or?
Well, for Ricardo would like it to have an end, because he wants to go play with new hardware and do new things with the new version of the Pico chip.
I see.
He wants to build an even more powerful Pico board. I mean, this at some point after this upgrade, all the code will be available on GitHub, and people will be able to look at it and say, fix things. And if there are, bugs still out there, and people fix those bugs and submit them to the GitHub, we can generate a whole new, update and ship it out to people and say, so and so fixed the thing. It's worth upgrading your Pico at this point with the new version. So it'll be open sourced, which is really nice. One of the things that we've talked a lot about is implementing what's called Restart 8 mode code. This is how the interface 1 worked on the Spectrum, and how the Zebra, the Portuguese floppy disk system, works on the 2068, where you type in load star quote, and that star generates a little error code in the 2068 that goes through this special vector which sends it off to another place. And in the Spectrum and the 2068 and the Interface One and the floppy drive, you had to implement hardware in order to do this because you couldn't rewrite the ROM. Well, we can rewrite the ROM, so it opens a whole lot of doors to different ways of using the Pico. And so
Timex kind of had a forethought to do that because on error is that's in the basic that allows you to do that.
Yep.
So
yeah.
and they don't have that on the Spectrum.
It's sort of exactly the method that a lot of these, disk commands, were implemented with. Was it generated an error message, and then it went through an error handler that looked at the command and said, is this really an error, or is this actually I'm supposed to go do something with the disk drive? Yeah, very nifty.
This method was designed by Sinclair.
Yes.
And works in all the computers, include the ZX81.
Yeah.
Never peripheral was created yet, but the method works. You can catch the restart A in an error and then replace the ROM. Full replacement.
Yeah.
That is the additional software. Yeah.
In theory, you can take the Pico design and make some changes to it and hook it up to, an 81 or 1000. Real quick. Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
You sent out an OS 64. You sent out this little notice about this article you wrote about the OS 64 cartridge and the various things. And since groups.io is a walled garden, I wanted you to give it a plug here because it's a really good document.
So basically, I decided to look into OS 64, tinker a bit. What intrigued me was the fact that it did 512 by 192 graphics, except it didn't support graphics. So if you were to do any sort of draw or line or plot, it would do the normal 256 by 192 graphics, but it could do 512. So I said, well, let me sit down and look at the memory design. And the first thing I did was how to do plotting manually with 32 column mode, just a single, that single display file one. And then I had to convert that. Okay, now let's do a plot 64, where I'm now plotting a point in 64 column mode. And then I used a pre-published Bresenham's algorithm for line and circle. And so using ZX Basic, you can do plot a point, draw a line, or draw a circle in 512 by 192 graphics mode with OS 64. Just something I wanted to try because no one's had done it before that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So
So
it took me a bit to figure out the memory layout. It's a bit weird, but basically it's just a bit of math. And I also had to determine whether it was display file 1, display file 2, and then I plunked along a bit for finding the math until it actually started working.
Yeah.
Tim, hi. Sorry, this is Gustavo. The most high resolution graphics extension have a problem. For example, when you draw a circle, you get an ellipse because you have more pixel in wide than the height. You need to use two different constants to create a real cycle in more resolution.
So
I don't know.
Again, with the circle algorithm doesn't care about the underlying display 1 and display file 2, meaning that so when I basically do a circle, I got a circle on the screen because it thinks it's 512 by 192, and the algorithm just basically says plot these points with the Bresenham circle algorithm. So it doesn't draw a circle; it draws 4 points and then brings those points together. It did look a little flattened slightly because the top was almost like 3 or 4 pixels like straight, but in general, it looked pretty good. I think Bresenham's has a tendency to look flat at that level, but the size looked pretty good. But it didn't look like an ellipse, it looked like a real circle.
Okay, great.
And I think I put a picture in the document showing that. David, do you remember me? I think I did an example with a circle and 2 lines through it, like a target thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have an interest in high resolution graphics, OS 64, any of that stuff, Tim's little paper is like about 8 pages or something. It's really, really good.
It's just something to do and explore, and like, okay, I'm curious about this, and as I learn things about it, I'll document it. And the biggest thing I wanted to do was to do the graphics and see if I could do that. And that takes up just a little bit of the because like, hey, I've done this code. Okay, it doesn't you can't describe it a whole lot, but I do have an example of what it looks like in the document. Plus, there's a downloadable zip file with all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So,
right. That gets back to the sort of conversation that we were having at the very beginning, which was, newsletters and user groups, and they would, talk amongst themselves, and sort of crosstalk, but it was like little tiny islands. And now, now we can share information like that, and that we're still finding new stuff.
And since you mentioned newsletter,
yes,
ZX81 is now at the printers.
Cool. Who did you go with, or what method did you decide to do?
I found a local printer, a local print shop.
Okay.
It's going to be on glossy paper, 11 by 17 saddle staples. So it's going to be in booklet form, 24 pages. So it'll have a cover. You open the cover up, the first page is blank, and then you've got a table of contents. I dropped it off last Thursday. They said take no more than 10 days. So I should get it sometime this week, and we'll figure out, what the costs of mailing are and that sort of stuff. So
awesome.
But again, I think right now the coverage of printing is being covered by the Bill Miller Collection Fund, and odds are I think a lot of the shipping will be that way too. So we'll come up with a list. Need to come up with a list of people, but that's once I get a feel for what the costs are going to be and everything, I'll let people know, and we get a list of people's addresses. I have some address. Those who bought from the Bill Miller Collection, I've got their addresses already. And those will probably they'll get a copy. So
cool.
It'll eat up a chunk of the Bill Miller Collection Fund, but hey, we weren't using it in the last year, so why not?
Yeah.
And I did 75 copies. Should be enough for us, and it should be some leftover for a few people maybe overseas that may want them.
Awesome.
Just ship it media mail,
Yeah, I'm gonna look at
that. I'll never get anywhere.
Well, it'll take it a little longer, but it'll save you a little bit of money, I guess. Not much.
Right. I also got to figure out if I'm going to drop 50 off of the post office, how best to do that. Now I'm just sitting licking stamps. They don't taste that good, but I'll figure it out.
You got to get one of those old porcelain stamp rollers. Oh, so
luckily my wife works at a contract post office, so that might help.
Oh,
so there's still a few of those running around.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim. We actually got a lot. I mean, yeah, a lot was accomplished in the past year and the year before, and I feel like this coming year, speed is being built.
Yeah,
it's really we just got to get Paul to do something.
Don't ask him to drive anywhere. He drives like a madman.
Okay.
Trust me, I know.
No special deliveries for Paul.
Middle of Pennsylvania in a raging thunderstorm, and he's on a mission. If he remembers that.
I think Paul's ignoring us now. All right.
So we've got about 5 minutes. So what's going on for the next meeting?
Okay, so our next meeting is, let's see here, Sunday the 19th.
I'm going to circle it on my calendar.
Thank you very much. If you write really, really small, you can make a note too.
All right.
Or you can wait for, the next version of Ryan's calendar software and, use that.
There we go. I wrote a note too. I don't know if you can see it, but.
For some people, it'll be a long weekend because it's Martin Luther King Jr. Day that Monday. Anyway, 2 p.m. Eastern. I am doing a little more digging this year to try to find Timex folks and other sort of long lost people to come and talk to us, kind of like Dave Franson did. That actually just sort of fell together really, really quickly. Like Dave said, I emailed him about his program, and he said that he got rid of a lot of stuff, but that he retained a few things and actually found the cassette, and then was able to join us right away. I don't know if you guys remember reading about I can't remember Sue's last name. There was a woman involved in the Boston Computer Society, the Sinclair user group portion of the Boston Computer Society back in the early 80s, in organizing the Sinclair group. And there was an article that appeared in, I think it was Timex Sinclair User, about her, about how to organize a user group. And then Timex hired her for a while. I think I found the right Sue on the internet. And so I'm sending out messages to see if I can get her to come talk to us, because she was in very, very early. I mean, I don't think she was Z80, but she was definitely ZX81. And she started working with Sinclair and their US office, back in the day, in terms of organizing the user group. So maybe she can have some...
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
the Boston group, that was the biggest one in the United States, right, at the time, in the 80s?
In terms of user groups? Well, see,
yeah, because it was all like one umbrella. And then
it was an umbrella group, right, for lots of little ones, right? There was the Sinclair group. There was, I believe there was a CPM group. When Danny Ross went to present the 2068 to the public, he did it to the Sinclair group of the Boston Computer Group. So that recording that you see on YouTube of him, holding up the 2068 and stuff, that was at Boston.
That's the one with the 2072 got the 2068, something like that.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Well,
but also, that's right in their backyard, at Timex's backyard in, Connecticut.
Yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from Hartford to Boston, basically, or Middlebury to Boston. Yeah. So anyway, I'm hoping Sue can come and give us some tips on how we should organize ourselves as a user group.
We can do that for you if you need, David.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm thinking too that I'll talk to Adam about this, and maybe even Ryan too. But I would like for us to get together, and me and Adam have done some videos before.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about doing videos of the. I think it would be cool to see videos of the the 1510 cartridge board, especially the new one, running through the programs, and maybe even the ROM board too, to see, so people can actually see it. I'm here talking about it, but I think it would be better if people could actually see it and get a better explanation of what's going on with it.
Yeah, Carl, absolutely. The little standalone videos about the stuff that we do, awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it'll go up on YouTube, and I'm starting to build my channel, and I just got Xfinity fiber up here, so it's in my house now. I'm running on it, so now I can actually upload shit at 900 megabits a second instead of like 1 or 2. Yeah. Which was just horrible. That's why I kind of stopped making YouTube content, because it would take 19 hours to upload a 15-minute video. It was just ridiculous. So I mean, it had good download speed. It was DSL, right? But now that I've got fiber, I've got a gig internet up and down, so I should be able to. I'll probably put it on my channel as well as Adam. We'll kind of cross pollinate there. But
that works.
Yeah, but I think
this way I can bring your channel down too. It'll be great.
Right, exactly.
Down
right.
to Adam's level.
But I just want to. I think getting stuff out on YouTube, and maybe we can get a GitHub going for all those cartridge files, and and Ryan's program to convert, so we can kind of I don't know how much more runway we have on this 1510 thing, but who knows?
You could put a Pico on there. And think of the things you can do with a Pico. And it doesn't even have to be a full size one. It could be the one that's like square shaped like a postage stamp. You don't need that many IO lines.
Remember,
Well,
the
you
ZX,
know, I might do an
remember-
ESP32 like they did for the Wispy.
Yeah.
Hey, Carl, remember ZX Zine gets read in Europe. You may get a couple people from Europe wanting to the TS 1500 cartridge stuff because
Yeah,
they
that's
never
true.
got that. It'll work on a
That's right,
ZX81, so you may get a bunch of people interested over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing is, you know, we don't have like a 3D printed case or anything for it. It's still kind of hanging out naked, which is fine to me, but you know, I can't really do that, at least not yet. So I'm sure there's folks here that should be able to do that.
Here who's pretty good at designing 3D cases for, you know, little doodads like this. Speaking of videos, Adam and Joe, can you guys touch base and get Adam's joystick fixed? So
Oh, gosh. I just haven't seen Brian. So
your joystick doesn't work.
It's not working correct, but I'm sure I can fix it. I just haven't Brian hasn't been able to come over because you wanted me to make it with Brian. If not, I'll just do it myself.
Whatever works for you guys.
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be, you know, fun with Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
David's referring to that he sent me a 1510 command. That's not right. 1590?
2090?
2090, that's it. Sorry.
Whatever the joystick.
Yeah, well, it's right over there. But he sent me the joystick from Timex, and he wants me to use it in a to review on my channel, which by the way is Bally Alley.
I want you to suffer through it.
I've got a couple of those things somewhere. One's actually in the box, the original box. But
borrow one of Carl's.
Okay, yeah, that works. Carl, when you
it's a Zircon joystick. You know, that's all it is. It's a Zircon. You know what they used on the Fairchild Channel F, basically. Except you can't twist it. You can you can just push it around, and it's got a fire button on it, which
David actually bought me one like on the last show, I think, right? Just live, and then you just sent it.
Yeah,
you just bought it, and it came in my mailbox.
Wow!
I was like,
how much was it?
Well, so you can compare them, right?
I know.
You know, physically,
maybe you should have made this video, David. You had all the stuff.
No, I don't have the time. Anyway, Jay has a request for you, Adam.
What's that?
To do a video about Space War. That's on
Space War.
Yeah, it's on the Pico SD card. I think that is the program that you might need two joysticks. You might need two players for it.
Like, are we talking? This is for the 2068, or what?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, look on your SD card for a program called Space War.
Okay, Space
on the
War.
2068.
All right, and this is like it's supposed to be like the old Space War, the first game, or what?
No, it's based loosely on an A.K. Dudney column from Scientific American.
Oh, okay, I'll check it out. Yeah.
Okay, so on that note, it's time for you guys to go do something else. All right. See you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
See you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.